Hello, 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 Freedomizers. Welcome to the Thursday, January 15th, 2015 edition of Zone 13, the best afternoon news show on the web. We're broadcasting live from the studios of FreedomizerRadio.com, and I'm Joanne Moretti. I also have my great co-host, Scott Fararello, with me, and we're really happy you tuned in. Thank you so much. Our call-in number is 347-324-3704. And, of course, our chat rooms, both at Blog Talk Radio and right here at FreedomizerRadio.com, are open for you. Some of our awesome colleagues, like Lynn, Anna, maybe AstroTurf, are in the chats putting links, documents, articles, and other important information in there, so you have it available to you. And thank you, ladies, for that nice courtesy. Our colleagues do more than just post links in chats. They're fantastic researchers and journalists and analysts, and some even have their own newspapers. So please say hi to them when you get over there. Today we have a huge show planned. I have so much information here, we're probably going to run out of time before we run out of things to talk about. Also, our team's been researching a number of subjects and current events. You know, the headlines you see on the mainstream media won't really tell you this story, but we'll try to fill in the details. Anyhow, before we begin, I have to first do a short disclaimer. That's just to let the feds and FCC, NSA, or anyone else who might be interested know that anything said on this show is solely my responsibility and not that of Freedomizer Radio or our many valued sponsors and advertisers. The disclaimer goes like this. The comments made by hosts, guests, callers, or chat commentators of Zone 13 do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints, ideology, opinions, beliefs, or anything else of FreedomizerRadio.com, their sponsors, or advertisers, whether it be past, present, or even future broadcasts. All right, now that we have that out of the way, let me open up Scott's microphone. I'll give him a proper hello, and we'll get this party started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, please, Scott Fararello. Hey, Scott.
Hey, how you doing, Joanne?
Oh, very good today, honey. How are you?
Oh, looking good.
Man, what a news day. Even in the middle of the night, you can't get away from the news. 4 o'clock this morning, I was still up doing news with you. So, sleep is not an option, I guess. Today's Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday.
There'll be plenty to sleep when we're in our FEMA camp, right?
Yeah, no, they don't let you sleep in that. Everybody's got a job. It's like prison. You got to clean things and do things and cook things, and, yeah, it'll be like prison. Not going to sleep there. Get your sleep in now, folks. Anything you want to bring up before we begin?
No, I don't think so.
All right, well, we got a ton of stuff. You'll know all of everything that's here anyhow, so we worked on it together. Today, like I just said, is Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. He was born January 15th, 1929, and he was assassinated on April 4th in 1968. I remember it clearly, too, man. Whoa. He was a Baptist minister, a social activist. He led the civil rights movement in the mid-50s until he died. He says, but we come here tonight to be saved from that patience that makes us patient with anything less than freedom and injustice. He's widely considered one of the most influential leaders of the American civil rights movement. He was a Republican, too. At that time in history, Democrats were the KKK party. You remember Byrd there, right? And, of course, all the rest of them, even, it's the guy in the wheelchair's name, ran for president. I know it like my Wallace, George Wallace. He was a Democrat. He was KKK, too. Anyhow, he was, he headed the SCLC, all kinds of stuff. My favorite quote by him is, we may have all come here on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. I think that was the most poignant thing that he said that struck me. So, happy birthday, I guess. Speaking of Martin Luther King's birthday, today there was protests in Boston. And, of course, they coincided with Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. It was from, the Black Lives Matter, Boston Black Lives Matter. Some activists, 6 of them, they come rolling up in a big Ryder truck, like a big U-Haul type truck. They rolled out barrels that they had half filled with concrete and cut holes in it. Then they put each person put an arm on either side of a barrel that had a hole in it, chained themselves at the wrist, and then somebody else must have helped them duct tape around the arms. They rolled up in the truck, opened the back, and pulled out these barrels across the expressway in Boston, I-93, at the Milton exit. That's right where you start to come into the city. And they also did it on the other side of the city in a town called Somerville. It's right at the Somerville-Medford line, and those are the people coming down into the city from the north. I mean, who in their right mind does that? They created such a traffic jam.
They probably had extra money left over from George Soros's $33 million for Ferguson riots, and what better way than to buy some barrels and signs to paint and stuff like that.
Yeah, and rent a truck and roll out barrels that weigh about 1,200 pounds each with concrete. And people in the cars, I'm a little disappointed in them. There were people spread across the highway. There were 6 of them, plus the driver. There was a few people on the overpasses, too, filming it and unfurling a banner. So we're talking maybe 20 people here. You know how many people were in those cars trying to get to work or trying to get... One of them was in an ambulance trying to get to a hospital, to a level 1 trauma center, but they ended up having to go to a lower-level local hospital. That person ended up dying, by the way. But, they could have just got out of their cars, dragged the kids over to the side of the road, and gone about their business, let them wait there for the cops. It was cold, rainy. What if they had to pee? And what if somebody decided to pull a little road rage on them? How were they going to defend themselves if they were chained if their hands were chained inside a barrel? Somebody could still be punching their little derbies in.
I don't know. The last time a guy got out of a car trying to do something like that, he's beat to death with hammers. So I guess you can't really blame him for not wanting to get involved.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, they could have at least dragged them off to the side of the road and let the traffic get by. Let them wait there for the cops. They were chained to a barrel half filled with cement. That's fine. I'm all for protesting. You have a right to protest, but the people in those cars have a right to protest, too. Those cars are legally registered in Massachusetts, so right there you're paying for the privilege of driving on those roads. Smart lawyer.
That's not protesting.
Yeah. No, that's disruption.
Dangerous people's lives and prevents them from going about their business, And if they think they're winning any votes and support by doing stuff like that, they're sadly mistaken.
Well, you're right. And you have the right to exercise your liberty, but you don't have the right to interfere with others exercising theirs. There wasn't one black person in the group, by the way, not in Somerville and not in Milton, on either side of the city. Not one black person. But, the people that were there, they had little quotes, and they set out this memo. Today, our nonviolent direct action is meant to expose in reality that Boston is a city where white commuters and students use the city and leave, while black and brown communities are targeted by police, exploited, and displaced. Okay, well, are those black people trapped in the city? Are they locked in? They can't go to the suburbs. They can't leave. And what about the white commuters? They are not Americans. They don't have a right to free travel. They don't have a right to their own liberty.
Well,
they're not impeding anybody else.
How many black commuters were on their way to work and on their way somewhere, and they were inconvenienced by this as well? See,
Absolutely.
This isn't a protest. It's some community organized, thing just to get on the news, just to get on into the media, and to try to push some agenda.
Yeah, and then they're like, they say things like, as a white person, my only options are to act against white supremacy or to be complicit in it. I don't know anybody who's a white supremacist. I don't know any KKK. I don't know any racists other than, the people who I'm starting to feel are being racist against my race. Anybody ask me, or you, or anyone else, what race they wanted to be? And then we got this other guy. I'm a white man. I know I benefit, and I'm protected by a racist society. I'm participating today because it's necessary. Another one says, I'm a white feminist. I take part in this action because anyone who claims commitment to equality must take action to dismantle. As a non-black undocumented immigrants in the United States, we refuse to perpetrate the erroneous idea. And here's another one. A non-black woman, including transgender and gender non-conforming folks in the United States, we refuse to allow our commitment to gender justice to distract us from racial justice. Gender justice? What has that got to do with putting barrels in the middle of the street at rush hour?
Nothing.
No. And as my co-host just brought up, George Soros did give $33 million to these protests. Liberal billionaire gives at least $33 million in 1 year to groups that emboldened activists. This is from the Washington Times. Here's a solitary man at the financial center of the Ferguson protest movement. No, it's not a victim, Michael Brown or Officer Darrell Wilson. It's not even the Reverend Al Sharpton, despite his ubiquitous campaign on TV and the streets. Rather, it's liberal billionaire George Soros, who has built a business empire that dominates across the ocean in Europe, while forging a political machine powered by nonprofit foundations that impact American politics and policy, not unlike what he did with MoveOn.org. In all, Mr. Soros gave at least $33 million in 1 year to support already established groups that emboldened the grassroots on-the-ground activists in Ferguson. The financial tether from Mr. Soros to the activist groups gave rise to a combustible protest movement that transformed a one-day criminal event in Missouri into a 24-hour-a-day national cause celeb. So this goes on, but it tells you about how he gives to the Gamaliel Foundation, Community Change in Washington, Drug Policy Alliance, Open Society, the buses of activists from the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference in Chicago. Networks, all kinds of stuff he gave here, all funded by Mr. Soros. Every one of them were provided buses and training and money, and the Acorns and the unions were all involved, the SEIU, they're big benefactors of Soros's generosity. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Wherever there's chaos and turmoil and hatred being spread, his money is attached to it. It doesn't matter whether it's Ukraine or Ferguson, Missouri. His money is directly attached to it, and everybody knows it. I mean, he's not public enemy number one. He's international enemy number one. And who does it benefit? It benefits the globalists, the far left wing, the communists, totalitarianists, and it's everything he's connected to is something rotten. He doesn't contribute one positive thing to anybody's society.
When Gruber said that the Americans were stupid, he might not have been that far off. It's not conservative Americans or libertarian Americans or free-thinking Americans. It is definitely the left. He's got these people, like you said, with these manufactured revolutions in his orange revolution, his color revolutions, they call it. There was blue in one country, purple in another, orange up in the Ukraine. Well, they're funded not only by Soros, but by USAID, too, and the left, far left in our government. But don't these people understand that they are not revolutionaries? Every revolution I ever heard of was to free themselves from the bonds of tyranny. These people are trying to bind themselves.
Right.
They are fighting for tyranny.
It's the opposite, just like everything. And he is behind all these, scholarships and getting kids from other countries to go to American schools to come over here to basically learn how to overthrow their governments.
Right.
Well,
Yeah. And in the meantime, you got every screwball from the Weather Underground, who's now a tenured professor at some university, all teaching the kids. And now they've not only into the universities, but they have weaseled their ways into high schools, middle schools, and now elementary schools. They even have their Common Core that is in the curriculum now. It's all communism, and they've been doing it for a very long time. Soros has been at it a long time.
Oh yeah. He's about like the last living Nazi sympathizer, collaborator. Here he was, a little kid, gathering up his own people's belongings and information and all for Adolf Hitler. And he gets on TV to this day and brags about it, says how proud he is of it and how it was the best time of his life. I mean, he actually says it was the best time of my life.
Mhm.
You know?
He did. I bet you he kept a piece for himself too. You know, those Swiss banks, they were never actually neutral, and they refused to give the gold to the survivors of the Holocaust and the money that the ancestors and their deceased relatives had put into the bank. They just said, no, we're not giving it to you. And that was the end of that. And he was part of that, too.
It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. He has escaped justice. I mean, destroying the entire, Bank of England. I mean, none of it's a secret. None of it's a conspiracy theory. It's all out there for you to find if you want to look for it.
Yeah, he was convicted of breaking the Bank of England. There's still an outstanding arrest warrant from France for insider trading.
George Schwartz, I believe. I'm not even sure why he changed it to Soros.
He changed it to Soros so that he wouldn't get killed in the Holocaust. He was selfish even then. And he changed it to Soros, and he ended up being one of Hitler's errand boys and going after the Jews willingly. He's just another psychopathic murderer.
Unbelievable.
A narcissist.
And look at him. He's 90 years old. Still going
90?
strong.
Yeah,
no, I guess he's 80. I think he's 80. He looks 90.
And he just got recently married. I couldn't imagine.
I'm not sure. I thought he got divorced from her already. The one that was like 35 years old. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Because she took him to court, humiliated him in front of court. That one.
Oh, that was the old girlfriend. Yeah. No. He married a different one. Some real skinny girl. Kind of looks like Umar Abedin. Looks like
can you
Nina's wife.
imagine the prenup on that deal?
Yeah, I can imagine that. He's got 5 sons too. And his son Jonathan is the one who is the heir apparent because the other ones are idiots. Got him by 4 different women.
That's why even when these disgusting, evil old-timers like him die, it's like whack-a-mole. You're going to have 5 to take his place.
Yeah, like Kim Jong-un. Our former co-host calls him ping pong.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice new flat top there, ping pong.
I love her. Every time she calls him, she used to call his father ping pong too. I don't know. I know one protest that Soros isn't behind. Protesters gathered at the Clinton Foundation looking for the missing money from Haiti.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, Soros had
Yeah, you mean the joint Bill Clinton, George W. Bush fund?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's why Bush got out of it.
People, you know what?
And it was old man Bush. Not young Bush, it was old man Bush.
People should stop giving money to those national charities because, let me tell you, somebody is getting rich off of them, and not even half of it's going where it's supposed to. You give locally to people that need it. There's plenty of people in your community, starving to death, or close to your community starving to death, and they don't have some rich zillionaire behind it skimming profits off the top.
Oh, yeah, well, they're looking for $10 billion that they can't find. This is from the Weekly Standard. Protesters gathered outside the Clinton Foundation in New York City to complain about missing money from the Haiti recovery efforts from the 2010 earthquake. New Yorkers with roots in Haiti say the picture of the Haiti recovery isn't so rosy. The protesters claimed that the $10 billion meant to help rebuild Haiti did little to help the country after the devastating quake, and that much of the money went to non-Haitian companies. In Harlem, people raised their voices to call attention to the missing money. This protest outside the offices of the Clinton Foundation would help lead the construction fund. Said one protester, these people, they are living in very difficult conditions, still living under tents, while Bill Clinton and his cronies, they wasted the money. As Secretary of State Hillary Clinton devoted much of her time in 2010 to the Haiti recovery as well. We did a report on this.
first the crooks that collect that money for the fund steal it, and then they hand it over to a dictator, in that country, and he steals the rest of it, and he may throw a few crumbs to the public, but I highly doubt it. I'll bet you none
That's
of
exactly what happened.
it goes where it's supposed to go.
Well, that's exactly what happened, and you know who else was involved in it? Was Maxine Waters. She's a real close friend of Aristide. He was deposed, and then Clinton made them put Aristide back in, even after he lost the election. He was running a scam with telephone companies. He was running scams with money and airlines, and Maxine Waters was involved in it, and her husband, who was a banker. Some of that money went through that bank, and that's why they're not going after her with the Ethics Committee, and you haven't heard from her in a while. You haven't heard a peep out of Maxine Waters. She was just told, shut up, vote the way we tell you, and everything will be fine. But there's a huge story behind all that. And those people from Haiti were never getting a nickel. What they want Haiti for is Haiti has rare earth minerals. They have iridium.
Yeah, the whole continent of Africa does.
Yeah, well, they don't. Yeah, well, they don't. They don't want anybody to build anything on that land. They don't mind putting up a cardboard box or a temporary shelter, but no way in hell are those people going to get any permanent resident. They might build, one of those housing complexes or projects and put them in there, but they won't be on land that's as valuable as what's over there. Haiti is a gold mine of mines, and they don't want all those poor people messing it up. Just die quickly, get some diseases or something, give everybody AIDS and cholera and poison up the water, and those people will die off, or they'll get out of there, and then the land is free. And that's what they want. Those people are not getting a nickel. The Haitians are screwed.
Not.
Yeah. We got a lot of news here. Obama wants to veto the Homeland Security bill. Now, I see people saying, we don't want him to spend money anyhow. Well, you have to spend money on Homeland Security. Some agencies do have to be funded. We all know that.
Why? Really?
Well,
really? Why do we?
Not,
why do you have to
no,
fund
but not all
Homeland
the
Security?
tenets of the bill. Well, you have
None
to
of
fund the FBI. You have to fund the...
That's not Homeland Security.
Yeah, they
That's
all fall under Homeland Security. They're
they
all
may-
under the DOJ now.
They may fall under that umbrella, but Department of Homeland Security was only created because of the 911 BS.
Yeah, well, now they've taken this whole Homeland Security thing. They've involved the Border Patrol, the TSA, the FBI, the Department of... It all runs under the Department of Justice.
Wow,
Jay Johnson answers to Holder.
If I was Congress, I would say, you know what? We're going to do a separate bill for border security, and all the rest of it can go bye-bye because it's all unconstitutional anyway. The FBI is nothing more than an investigation agency for the Federal Reserve. Department of Homeland Security is a joke. Here it is supposed to protect the homeland. I mean, the thing was created off of the Stasi model in Germany. Totally
Absolutely,
unconstitutional. Stomps on all of our civil rights, all our rights and everything. And it's a joke. I mean, they help illegals across the border. They run them through as fast as they can. There's no background checks. There's no waiting on Ellis Island to make sure you don't have Ebola or something. You have the TSA. They haven't caught a bad guy, a terrorist, so to speak, ever in the whole time they've been there. Think of the billions they're wasting on this.
And customs enforcement is involved.
How about giving it to the veterans who don't have enough money, or time to wait 3 years to see a doctor at the VA, so maybe they can afford to go see a real doctor somewhere?
No, didn't you hear Michelle Obama? She said some people are going to have to give up their piece of the pie so others can have more.
He's not. He wouldn't ever think about not funding those organizations. That's just a shakedown, try to scare people. So so
well,
Congress
that's what this
caves
bill
in.
is actually about.
Boner has a reason to cave in, like he needs one. and they'll fund his amnesty. Because as soon as they fund DHS, there goes your amnesty, because they're running it all.
No, but see, that's what this is about. That's why he wants to veto it, is because of the Marsha Blackburn amendment. She did exactly what you suggested. She said, no, we're going to have a clean bill for funding amnesty and immigration. We want a separate bill for reform. So we're taking every dime out of this bill for amnesty programs, for his executive orders, all of that. And we're going to do it through customs and enforcement and immigration. So that's exactly what she wants to do. She wants a clean bill. In the meantime, you got Pelosi out there screaming, we want a clean bill that he can sign. And she gets it, and she still doesn't even recognize what a clean bill is. I don't think these words mean what they used to mean.
Well,
and then you got 26 Republicans
anyway.
who voted against Blackburn.
What's a clean bill? They don't read them anyway.
Yeah.
You know, somebody from the CFR prints it up, hands it, and says, here, sign this. It's 7,000 pages long.
Yeah, and you got to pass it to find out what's in it.
Yeah, right.
Why don't you read it to find out what's in it?
I say roll back everything to 1912, okay? That means no DHS, no TSA, no IRS, no FBI, no Fed, none of it, okay?
Yeah.
Let's roll back to 1912.
Well, that's actually what Cruz and Lee are talking about. Black tax, no IRS.
Guess how many terrorist attacks we had in 1912? 0.
Yeah.
But, what do I know?
Ted Cruz and Mike Lee are fighting for that. They want just a flat tax to keep the government running, and that's a necessary evil, and get rid of the IRS, get rid of the Fed. Even Rand Paul, everybody, they still want to get rid of the Fed, so that's a plus. But
Can you imagine if they just funded what we really needed? An actual border security, building a wall, and maybe a Department of Social Security to make sure the checks go out to the old folks. Something for the veterans, a real veteran.
Sure, they'd be swimming in money.
A real veteran administration where they actually cared about the, about veterans' health. I mean, all the rest of it, you're talking trillions of dollars. You don't need Department of Education, so, they're taking them on field trips to mosques. You don't need it. This is big government, and the bigger the better for these people. You don't need an alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. You don't need none of this.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We have 38,000 federal employees who owe over $3 billion in back taxes. How many federal employees do we have if 38,000 of them owe taxes? What percentage is that, too?
Well, I know. Well, yeah, look at Al Sharpton. Heck, we could make $4 million right there. It's one guy.
Yeah, no kidding. But, they put everybody else in jail. They put you in jail for $1,800.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. 26 Republicans did vote against that amendment to defund the amnesty, by the way. So those 26 Republicans should be put on notice.
They would know. He would no longer get rid of Department of Homeland Security as I would vote for Hillary Clinton.
Oh no, that's just he wants that civilian army.
Sure.
He wants that civilian army really, really badly. He can't have a standing army operating on American soil, so he's just built himself a civilian army. And they're federal employees, but they're civilians.
And
they're not considered military.
Then he's got an ex-Stasi guy that set the whole thing up. I mean, if anybody did any research on this and just find out that everything that's been done in about the last 15 years and longer has been right out of the Nazi playbook.
Joe Biden actually wrote most of the Patriot Act.
You're right, and I believe he wrote it. I think the thing was completely done, a whole big stack prior, about 3 weeks before 9/11 even happened. And as soon as 9/11 happened, they rolled that baby out.
Yeah, funny they just happen to have that on hand, huh? Speaking
Yeah,
of having
sure
things
is.
on hand, the Obama administration is handing out flyers now advertising amnesty while he waits for this bill to reach his desk. It says Obama sidesteps the Constitution and Congress to implement amnesty for illegal aliens and gets away with it. He's avoiding impeachment because he issued a memo, not an order. What do you want to bet the Republicans help him fully put this violation of sovereignty and silent coup into force, says this lawyer, Cleaver lawyer. The Daily Caller says the Obama administration's Department of Homeland Security is now advertising its immigration executive order with a series of flyers. United States Citizenship and Immigration Services encourages stakeholders to use these flyers when communicating with the public about these actions. According to an email, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services is circling around Capitol Hill. The flyers are available in English, Spanish, Korean, and Vietnamese. A Chinese version will soon be available. It says Obama has announced a series of executive actions on immigration, the flyers proudly proclaim. The flyers urge immigrants to avoid scams and lay out the guidelines for illegals to apply for amnesty through Obama's executive order. While USCIS is not accepting requests for expanded DACA or DAPA at this time, you can gather documents that establish factors such as your identity, relationship to a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident, and continuous residence in the United States over the last 5 years or more. And, insult to injury, you and I are paying for this. Obama's doing all he can to be helpful to those who can be helpful politically right back. It's a huge voting bloc for the progressives on the left, and it's cheap slave labor for the progressives on the right. It's a win-win, unless, of course, you're an actual American. In that case, it's a lose-lose. Over 75% of America is against this, but it doesn't matter. The elites and Marxists are for it, and they are gleefully shoving it down our throats. American amnesty has arrived, and the invasion is almost complete. Of course it is. If you're handing out flyers telling them to get their ID and their relationship papers together and their residency papers, you know damn well what's next. You know that de Blasio in New York, he's issuing IDs, free IDs to illegals. He's not issuing free IDs to actual citizens. Nothing is free for citizens. You got to go down there if you want a birth certificate, if you want any type of a copy of something for the government, then you have to pay for it. But if you're an illegal, you don't have to pay for anything. They'll even provide transportation for you to go and get your free paperwork, because he doesn't want them living in the shadows. A free one-year membership to 33 cultural institutions is included, de Blasio said. Imagine that. Says we don't want any of our fellow New Yorkers to feel like second-class citizens.
You know,
they're not any class citizens. They're illegals.
They put them on the fast track to get disability benefits without paying into the system. They can. They have a right to own a weapon now. You know,
yes.
They're trying to disarm regular Americans. But
they're giving out gun permits to illegals too. But you know, they don't want to. He doesn't want them to feel like second-class citizens. How about we don't have any class citizens? We have citizens and non-citizens. They're non-citizens.
Well,
they're not second-class anything. He wants them to come out of. We don't want them to feel left out. And he doesn't want them in the shadows.
They should have
what
told
did
him.
What did de Blasio go down to?
The only way not to be a second-class citizen is to be a politician. That's it. You know, they're the first-class citizens. We're the second-class citizens. You know? They say we have a...
illegals are no-class citizen. None at all. They're not citizen, period. That citizen and illegal doesn't go together.
Yeah, I know.
But
it's immigration. They call it illegal immigration, but it's illegal invasion because immigration is a legal process.
Well, de Blasio got the biggest applause in his speech when he mentioned his plan for ID cards for illegal aliens. To all my fellow New Yorkers who are undocumented, I say New York City is your home, too. And we will not force any of our residents to live their lives in the shadows. Nobody's forcing them to live their lives in the shadows. This is a choice of theirs. We didn't go and kidnap them and drag them off to New York and drop them there and tell them not to leave the house and don't talk to anybody and live in the shadows. These were all choices made by them.
the two states where they are doing this at the most is the two most expensive states to live in, New York and California. So once they get their ID and they get processed and everything and they find out they can't afford to live anywhere, they'll be spreading out to all the other states in the country.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
From north to south, you see. You got California, in the south, you got, New York in the north, and they just top to bottom.
You know what else they're doing is they're getting Section 8 certificates in these expensive cities, in liberal cities, and then they're taking them to less expensive cities. So instead of having partial rent paid, all of it is paid, plus there's a difference that they send you back. The federal Section 8 certificates can be taken to any state after a year. You got to live in the state that issued it to you. But the state that issued it to you continues to pay for that Section 8 certificate, even if you're not living in that state, because it was the point of issue. So if you go to New York and you get a Section 8 certificate that covers $1,800 a month in rent, and then you take it to someplace like, say, Rhode Island, and the rent is only $900, they're going to give you back a check for $900.
Wow, what a scam.
And the people of New York are going to be paying for that.
I think I'm going to sneak into Mexico. I'm going to change my name to Carlos, and then I'm going to sneak back in because I want some of that.
Not Carlos Danger, right?
No, not.
All right.
That one's taken. That one's taken by Anthony.
Yeah, otherwise you're barred from using a GoPro, all right?
Right.
That's it. Hey, while we slept, most people slept, 5 more Gitmo detainees were released, and I got to talk about this for a minute. We put together some possibilities overnight. Let me read this to you first from the New York Times. The United States transferred 5 more detainees, all of them Yemenis, that's important, from the military prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, on Wednesday, the Defense Department announced. Their release intensified the dispute between the Obama administration and several Republican senators over President Obama's recent flurry of transfers as he seeks to empty the American-run prison. The latest transfers came one day after several Republican senators, including John McCain of Arizona, proposed legislation that would place a moratorium on the release of most of the prisoners. Anyhow, with the transfers on Wednesday, there are 122 prisoners at Guantanamo, down from 680. Mr. Obama, and I don't know why the New York Times keeps calling him Mr. Obama instead of President Obama, but maybe they know something or admitted to something. Mr. Obama's goal in the last 2 years of his presidency is to deplete the Guantanamo prison population. 4 of the 5 Yemenis released Wednesday were transferred to Oman, which shares a border with Yemen. So he's sending them right back to Yemen. Okay, now, the men were all cleared for release and all of that, and the 4 men released to Oman, according to the Pentagon News release, are Al-Qaeda Abdullah Mohammed Al-Yafi, who has been held at the Gitmo without charges for 13 years. There's Fadel Hussein Salih Hentif, Abdul Al-Alran Abdullah Al-Shabadi, and Mohammed Ahmed Salim, all of whom have been held for almost 13 years. The 5th man, Ahmed Abdul Khadai, was captured by the Pakistani authorities in March 2002. So he was released to Estonia. Anyhow, okay, now you have these Al-Qaeda from Yemen that were released. Big time. The only ones that were left there are the worst of the worst. The lower level ones have been gone, long gone. So now, AQAP, the Al-Qaeda of the Arabian Peninsula, which Yemen is part of, has claimed responsibility for the Paris attacks. So keep that in mind. As a matter of fact, our colleague Denise told us that hours after the attack. Well, anyhow, I was in bed last night, and I was thinking, so just picture this. Picture that we're in World War III, because actually that's what I think is happening. What if Obama really did put that hit out? You all remember him standing up at the UN and saying the future doesn't belong to those who would slander the Prophet of Islam. And he called out that Charlie Hebdo by name. Remember they were drawing the Muhammad cartoons and he was flipping out about it? So right there, if he was in the mafia, they would have said he just put out a hit. which he did. He put out an international hit on Charlie Hebdo when he said those words because they were slandering the Prophet of Islam.
And
they also
the payment was letting four of their friends out of prison.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. He called out Hezbollah by name. Now imagine those Yemeni Al-Qaeda in Gitmo that he just released. Al-Qaeda from the Arab Peninsula. They took the responsibility for the Paris attacks. Anyhow, now imagine all the world leaders have figured out that Obama did this. He enabled it. He armed it. He funded it. You all know that he's been arming Mexican cartels, the Libyans, the Syrian rebels. They're even airdropping weapons and supplies. Accidentally, of course. But, he's arming everybody, every radical faction in the world. So, and Belgium, they said, oh, yeah, the weapons came from Belgium.
Right.
So what?
And then they traced the weapons to Belgium, found the guys, and all of a sudden a hit squad shows up and eliminates them from squealing.
That's right. So they came from Belgium. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't come from Obama.
And Belgium is a very big globalist hub,
Right.
It's the headquarters down there. There's a lot of freaks come out of there.
Yeah, they tell us this guy over in Paris has turned himself in because he figures the Al-Qaeda people with the guns are going to think that he betrayed them. So he went and asked for protection. Now there's this raid, and you're right. Dead men don't talk, do they? So what if these world leaders have figured it out, that it all happened from Obama? He said he was going to stand with the Muslims. He was not there at that rally, but every one of those world leaders were there.
Most
and
of
the next
them,
day,
these guys have got just as good of intelligence, agencies as we do. They know who's doing what, and they probably told him. They probably didn't even invite him.
Well, that's probably another reason that Holder hightailed it out of there after that security meeting. They probably said, "Listen, jerk, we know you did this."
Yeah.
So people are saying it was a false flag. I don't think it's a false flag. I think it's false facts that are coming out. Because why would Obama, out of all those world leaders, be the only one absent? And you're right, he wasn't invited there because they've figured it out that this all came from him. He is not standing with our allies. He is standing with the Muslims. He's arming them. And as sure as he pulled the trigger himself, that attack in Paris came from Obama. And he wasn't invited to play in their reindeer games because they already got his number. They know it was him. And they know, and that's why Holder had to get it out of there. That unity march was a show of unity against us, against Obama. They were showing them they knew who did this. No Obama, no Holder, no Kerry. All the top-tier leaders were there, unified against us. Obama's on the side of the Muslims.
This is probably even a bigger thing. It's, when you crap on your allies, so to speak, and you have no friends, well, you know what? One day when your country is attacked and an EMP hits and all the people are starving to death because there's no electricity, who's going to come and help? Nobody.
That's exactly, that's the type of stuff that abusive boyfriends, girlfriends, and spouses do. What's the first thing they do? They isolate you from your friends and your family because those are the people that will help you.
He'll be over in Hawaii, in a $400 million mansion, living like a king.
Yeah, Aloha Akbar.
He's not going to go without electricity or food. Are you kidding?
No, and he's got a brand new fence too.
As long as he's got good reception for ESPN and a golf course, he's in heaven.
Yeah, well, what made me think on those lines was Merkel went to a pro-Muslim rally right afterwards. So it's not the Muslims they're mad at, it's us. And they showed themselves in the picture. If you see that those world leaders are absolutely separated from that huge throng of people that were partying down the street. They were actually in the shape of a pyramid, too, for all the NWO conspirators. If you look at the photographs, the aerial photographs of where the leaders were marching, they were lined up in the form of a pyramid without Obama in that.
That's not a conspiracy theory anymore. It's conspiracy fact, and they don't even hide it, But yeah, and I'm surprised the French president came out and denounced that and everything. I mean, he doesn't seem like he's in lockstep with Germany at the moment. I mean, you can always tell who the globalists are because their talking points are all the same. It doesn't matter whether it's the United Nations, United States, or Germany. They all say the exact same thing. Like they all get their talking points from the CFR, and they all repeat them verbatim.
Yes. Yep.
I mean,
and
you know, had Howard Dean on there, and he's like, yeah, they have these Muslims have nothing to do with Islam. They're about as Muslim as I am. Yeah, well, you know what? They're not recruiting Mormons, okay? They're not recruiting Baptists. I'm sorry that they're only recruiting this group, but it's an easy group to target. And you know, when it occurred to me the other day that when Obama comes out and they say, you know, don't give these guys a bad rap and it's not their religion. You know what? Maybe he's right. Maybe most Muslims are peaceful, except for the ones that he's training and arming and sending into countries without a central bank, and using as an excuse to chip away at our civil liberties and to continue to shred the Constitution. Maybe they are peaceful. Maybe the only ones that are radical are the ones that are being radicalized.
Could be. Or maybe they're not peaceful at all because they are just biding their time and they're working on this caliphate. Because if they're peaceful, a cartoon wouldn't automatically turn them into a raging psychopathic murderer. You know, if somebody draws a bad cartoon about me or my mother, I'm going to be mad, but I'm not going to turn into a psychopathic murderer and take out innocent people and hold hostages and blow up things. You know, so you're either a psychopathic murderer or you're not. A cartoon isn't going to do that.
Back in the 70s, Iran and all these Muslim countries actually looked up to America. They wanted more freedom like we had, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? There were no, quote, radical Muslims. There were no, acts of terrorism. I mean, the only terrorism there was coming from the Irish, the IRA. And, you know, Jimmy Carter, you know, ousted the Shah. He installed the mullahs, and that's where all this started. And one of the first acts of terror they did was take a bunch hostage. And even in the photos, there was like a 24-year-old Mahmoud Ahmadinejad that was a part of the hostage crisis.
Right.
The one that Reagan immediately, got him to stop. And that's when the PLO was created. Okay, that's when Yasser Arafat came on the scene. That's when all of it happened. And so when Jimmy Carter's out here going, yeah, I blame Israel, or I blame this group or that group for this happened, you know what? You should look in the mirror. You started the whole thing, Jinnah.
Yeah, well, we were propping up Yasser Arafat, too. That's Brzezinski's boy. And Brzezinski was the one that was training all these radicals. And Iran didn't just change from the Ayatollah to the Shah, from the Shah to the Ayatollahs in a vacuum overnight. That has been worked on. And those people that helped to do that, they were trained by Brzezinski.
And that was Brzezinski as well, because he was what? He was Carter's foreign affairs guy, or
I mean, there's photographs of him. There's photographs of him arming Sandinistas.
And he even writes about it in his book. I mean, he even writes about it. Oh, man, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, so, but Obama's going to fight extremism now. You know how he's going to do it?
Yeah, he's going to
social workers, baby.
Yeah, some social workers.
Community organizers and social workers. Yep. I don't know, but let's see here. The Washington Examiner, Byron. After attacks in France, White House enlists social service providers to fight terrorism. On Sunday, the White House announced that Obama will convene a summit on countering violent extremism on February 18th. At least they brought it down to a date now. It says, by White House extremism, the White House means the Charlie Hebdo and kosher grocery attacks carried out in Paris last week by Islamist jihadis. The White House has long made a point of leaving the word Islamic out of discussions, out of Islamic terrorism, which Scott was just discussing, choosing instead to refer to it as violent extremism. For example, an April 2010 New York Times article on White House efforts to reach out to Muslims noted that top counterterrorism advisor John Brennan and others have made a point of disassociating Islam from terrorism in public comments, using the phrase violent extremism in place of words like jihad and Islamic terrorism. In May 2010, Times article noted that Obama avoids the word Islamic in all of his discussions. So, the upcoming White House summit, spurred by radical Islam attacks, will be devoted to countering a mysteriously motivated violent extremism. The summit will emphasize the soft side of the problem, seeking social scientists and other professionals to address the root cause of what administration officials refer to as really negative ideology. Not violent, murderous, want to install a caliphate behavior. No, not at all. It's really negative ideology. You know what?
Well,
I don't see a bunch of Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and even the Moonies. I don't see all them blowing things up and beheading people and teaching children how to behead people and killing babies and enslaving women and children. I don't see any of that going on. So, it's probably not the nuns and the monks.
Well, you know what? I figured this out. They're an easy group. They're an easy group to target. They've been using this group since the beginning of time, and it's easy to radicalize this group because there's so many of them. It's just on a larger scale. It's just like what they do to the blacks. It's easier to go to black neighborhoods and rile them up and get them to riot because of the easiest target to choose. It's just on a larger scale, And then, like I was just saying about how globalism and how they're all in lockstep together. As soon as he says something like that, as soon as he says we're gonna basically censor people from talking about bacon or ham or anything that insults, Muslims or Jews or whatever, then the Pope comes out and he starts saying, well, freedom of speech is okay unless you start picking on someone's religion.
Yeah, well, obviously the Pope is not an American.
Talking points.
Right. Yeah, freedom of speech as long as they agree with the speech. And if they don't agree with the speech, then it's not free.
Yeah, so you know what? Something offends
they
everybody. I could be talking about hamsters, and that could offend somebody. I really don't like rodents. Tough. If whatever I say offends you, don't listen to me anymore. Don't read my magazine. It's real simple. You know what?
Yeah.
If you want a cake, and you're gay and you want a wedding cake, and I'm a Christian bakery, there's 1,000 other stores over there that will be happy to take your money. You don't have to shut down my store because I don't want to go against my religious beliefs.
Yeah, that's correct.
I don't know about you, but I wouldn't go to a gay bakery to get a wedding cake, made for me at a heterosexual wedding. Would you? Unless they were, they were okay with it. I wouldn't want to shut them down and run them out of business because they didn't cave into to something I wanted. I remember when you could go into a bar and there'd be a sign that would say, we reserve the right to refuse service to anybody.
Yeah, for
that
any reason.
means, you know what, if you come in here with an attitude, you come in here drunk or something, you come in here and you start in trouble, we don't have to serve you. Now, boy, you better serve everybody that comes in there, even if they come in there, strapped for jihad, because if you don't, then you're a freaking racist.
Yeah, well, racism, that's a bunch of baloney, too. That's just another made-up word to shut people up and to stifle dissent.
It's the same thing with the word anti-Semitism, the word Islamophobia, the word homophobia. These are all words.
Well, I'm getting a little tired of the Christophobes.
You cannot say this and that and this and that about this group of people, or you just don't like that entire group of people.
Right.
It's just, and this, who made up that? Trotsky did, wasn't it?
Yep.
Tommy?
Yep.
Exactly. whether it's Karl Marx or Sal Alinsky or Leon Trotsky, they know, they know psychology, and they know how to really use it to their advantage, because nobody wants to be called names. Nobody wants to be thought of as a bigot or a racist.
Exactly.
So you
mockery
can just
and
label
that's
somebody
Alinsky.
something. Yeah.
That's Alinsky right there.
Yeah,
Mockery and ridicule is a
liberals
most powerful weapon.
Liberals have this down to a T, because they have a position, and you have all these facts and knowledge against that position and why it's bad. And instead of saying, you know what, well, okay, that's your point, here's my point and my facts. No, they completely just forget all the facts you just said, and they go right for your character.
Right.
Oh, yeah, you just don't like black people. You just don't like gay people. It has nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
just like Obama. He could be white, brown hair, blue-eyed, and I'd still hate his guts because of what he believes in, what he says, what he does, lies 24 hours a day. I mean, I don't like anybody that does that.
Have you seen him without makeup? He doesn't look black or white. He looks Arab. So that's what I figure.
Yeah.
But while we're on this subject, I don't know if everybody out there saw this yesterday, but Nancy Pelosi installed known Muslim Brotherhood care sympathizer Andre Carson into the House Intel Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a radical Islamist mole who was just embedded into our House Intelligence Committee.
Well, we have one
the
in the
enemy
White
is
House.
in the building.
What's the difference?
Remember when that guy said about the State Department when they were having the Benghazi hearings? He said the enemy is in the building. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those words were more poignant yesterday. The enemy is in the building. Ulsterman wrote this. In the wake of the most recent Islamic terror attack in France, Democratic Congresswoman and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi has just indicated that she intends to name Muslim Congressman Andre Carson to the House Intelligence Committee, among the most important national security panels in the U.S. government. This is the same Andre Carson who has troubling ties to the same Muslim Brotherhood organization recently banned in Egypt and currently being investigated by the British government for, among other things, terrorist-related activities. Plus, he's involved with CARE, ISNI, and all the other Muslim groups. And he's now inside our Intel Committee. Guys, we're stooped. We're in trouble.
It's that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, I'll be surprised if in 2016 they don't have a Muslim caucus and a Latino/Mexican caucus to go along with their black caucus.
Right.
It's just a way to make sure that people, all these new people that don't want to, become part of what Americans are, to just, a reason where they can say, well, everybody's just going to vote not to have a constitution anymore,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they ran one, like I said last time or last week. If they can elect somebody with no vetting process, and the vetting that was done, you found out the guy wasn't even a natural-born citizen. He has no past. His entire past is photoshopped. His records are sealed at college. You know absolutely nothing about this guy. You don't even know who his dad is. He changed his name.
Mm-hmm.
If they can elect someone like that, they can elect a ham sandwich, or they could elect,
a guy who's sitting in jail for jittling.
They could elect anything. They could elect this guy that Nancy Pelosi appointed to the Central Intelligence Committee.
They just elected a guy who's in jail.
Dianne Feinstein. What?
They just elected a guy in Virginia who's currently in jail for molesting underage girls.
Oh, I see that. Now tell me that election there is not completely compromised.
And he was an independent.
Come on, the guy was caught molesting a 12-year-old girl or something,
17,
and he's in prison or he's in jail, and he still wins. I mean, this is like electing Marion Barry, for a second term when he was still alive. But you can't tell me people are this stupid, because I don't believe it.
Well, they are. I think we had an attack in D.C. the other day. Boy, did this go down. Like, shut down dark in a minute. There was an evacuation at the L'Enfant Metro Station in D.C. the other day. One person died. 6 people are critical, and 66 people were taken to the hospital because of this smoke incident. The train filled up with smoke. People were choking, and they couldn't get the train to back up. They finally evacuated people, made them walk back to the station. And like I said, one lady's dead, and a bunch of them are critical. But, boy, did they put the shutdown on that. They didn't make another peep out of it. The National Transportation Safety Bureau showed up. Hazmat showed up. The feds showed up. There was a whole convoy of feds that showed up in the middle of the night to do their investigation. And then they just blew it off like it was arcing. That can happen. Yes, it can. But not to the degree that. And if you were arcing and your material was being electrocuted, of course there'd be smoke, but there would also be fire. There was no fire involved in this. Smoke enough to kill people, fill up trains, fill up a subway station, and no fire? And then everybody's evacuated out of there. You still can't get near there, and there's feds crawling all over the place, but it was arcing. And if it's arcing, how come it doesn't happen all the time? How come we don't see a whole bunch of these incidents in these subways? Something wrong there. I think we had an attack, and I think they're not telling us about that.
I don't know. People are living down there now, A lot of people are living down there in them subways.
Well, they said the smoke smelled like chemical, and then when they got outside, it smelled like wood when they got outside the train. But, bad enough to kill people? That's how much smoke and no fire? Sounds to me like some sort of a gas bomb went off. I don't know either.
They're not using it to push any agenda, so it's obviously nothing they did.
Yeah, well, also, did you see what's going on at Duke University now?
Oh, yeah.
On Fridays, they're going to be doing the call to prayer over the PA system outdoors. Isn't that forcing your religion on other people?
Yeah, it is.
If you want your call to prayer, do it inside your chapel.
Just the fundamentally
ring church bells.
He's going to have this a Muslim country by 2016, no matter what.
All right, well, they're going to do this Muslim call to prayer on Fridays. Shouldn't we expect them to be doing the Lord's Prayer on Sunday?
I want to know how many Muslims
and the Shabbat on Saturday.
I want to know how many Muslims are actually at Duke University, and compare that to the number of students at Duke University. Because
that's a good question.
But this is what I mean about big government. This is coming from the Department of Education or some government agency. Somebody doesn't wake up one morning and say, "Hey, let's start, calling for the Muslim prayer here."
Yep.
Somebody is telling them to do this.
Yeah. All right, we're going to have to take a break, but before we do take this break, I want everybody to laugh, and then when we come back, we'll do some more. But this is a little bit risque. I would say it's PG-13, so if you have any children in your room, now's a good time to get rid of them. The headline on this is Whorehouse Sues Church. Okay, so you know where we're going with this with the kids, so tell them to get lost for a minute. This is from the trenches. What an interesting turn of events in Mount Vernon, Texas. Diamond D's brothel began construction on an expansion of their building to increase their ever-growing business. In response, the local Baptist church started a campaign to block the business from expanding, with morning, afternoon, and evening prayer sessions at their church. Work on Diamond D's progressed right up until the week before the grand reopening, when lightning struck the whorehouse and burnt it to the ground. After the cat house was burnt to the ground by the lightning strike, the church folks were rather smug in their outlook, bragging about the power of prayer. But late last week, Big Jugs, Jill Diamond, the owner, Madam, sued the church. the preacher, and the entire congregation on the grounds that the church was ultimately responsible for the demise of her building and her business, either through direct or indirect divine actions or means. In its reply to the court, the church vehemently and voraciously denied any and all responsibility or any connection to the building's demise. The crusty old judge read through the plaintiff's compilation and the defendant's reply, and at the opening hearing he commented, "I don't know how the hell I'm going to decide this case, but it appears from the paperwork that we now have a whorehouse owner who staunchly believes in the power of prayer and an entire church congregation that thinks it's all BS." That's a turn of events, huh?
Yeah. That's the one
All right,
got struck by lightning or something?
Yeah, the church got struck by not the church, the brothel. They were doing renovations, and they were about to do their grand reopening, and the church got struck by lightning. But the church, not the church, I keep saying the church. The brothel got struck by lightning. The church people were praying for divine intervention, and they got it. So the brothel sued the church, saying, "You called God on me, so now you owe me. You burnt down my business." And the church is like, "What, are you crazy? We didn't burn down your building. You got struck by lightning." Well, you were praying for that. Be careful what you wish for. I don't know where that's going to go, but I just thought that was just something very strange that we should have brought up. All right. Let's take our commercial break, and when we get back, we have a bunch more stuff to talk, a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. So stick around. We'll be right back. And hello, everybody. We're back. You're listening to Zone 13 right here at freedomizerradio.com. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host, Scott Ferrarello, is here with me, too, and we're happy you stuck around. Thank you so much. All right, let's get back into some news. Let's see here. Gold and crude jumped a bit today, and the SNB was hinting that this is going to be another quantitative easing. Zero Hedge says, "This is a massive message from the SNB to the market. ECB is going to do a quantitative easing, and it's going to be big," notes Goldman Sachs, and it appears gold and crude oil are starting to get on that bandwagon. Gold is back above $12.55. And here's a little message from Goldman Sachs. "Removing the SNB peg takes out one of the biggest euro buyers in the market. And, of course, very notable, this is happening 1 week ahead of the ECB. They possibly realized they could not continue to buy unlimited quantities when the ECB might print unlimited quantities." So Zero Hedge says this is definitely a massive message. Last week we told you that they were manipulating gold and they were artificially lowering the price, so people would think that the price of gold was falling and everybody would dump their gold. We told everybody, hold on to it. Well, it turns out we were right, because gold has now gone back up over the 1,200 mark, and hopefully you're still holding on to yours. Now, you know about what's going on with oil. The price of oil, that went up a little bit. It went up to $56, but then it went back down to $45. We talked about this last week, how, everybody is enjoying the low prices, and I think that not only should you enjoy them, but you should probably get yourself some gas hoppers and load up, because the price is going back up. However, before it does, you got a lot of businesses, especially in Texas and New Mexico and Utah and Louisiana, who are going out of business because of it. If it costs you $60 a barrel, or even $50 a barrel, to take the oil out of the ground, pay your help and your overhead and everything, there's no way you can sell it at $45 a barrel. So now, at least 20% of the oil workers at one of these places, someplace in Texas, I don't know the name of it, I'll find it, but he's already laid off 20% of his help and has told them to find other work. He says anybody who's been in this business and thinks it's always going to be going like gangbusters, always making $150,000 a year, hasn't been here long enough to know there can come a time when you might not be able to find anything. He's back working as a designer at the technology place, and he believes FMC, that's his company, should be okay for a while thanks to a big backlog of orders. But he has friends and relatives who are facing job losses and pays. And Craig Energy, they're a Denver-based oil service company. They're the ones that laid off the 20% of their workers. You know, it went from $150 a barrel down to below 35. It's, you know, creeping back up. But how are you going to run a business like that? This is, you know, they think that they're just attacking Russia. But the Saudis and the Qataris and the Iraqis and everybody, they were all losing money when Texas was having this oil boom. Not just Texas, but the United States. So now that they have lowered their prices, they're putting America out of business. As soon as these wells are capped and these oil workers have gone off and found other jobs, you know, damn well that gas is going back up. But while it's down, Miss Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi, says now is the perfect time for a gas hike. And she's not alone, by the way. This is from The Hill. Falling oil prices give Congress a great opportunity to hike the gas tax, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi said. But the Democratic leader also cautioned that her party won't trade the store in return for the gas tax increase being floated by some Republicans. I can't respond to their proposal because I don't know what it is, said Pelosi during a briefing at the Capitol. But I do think that if there's ever going to be an opportunity to raise the gas tax, the time when gas prices is so low, oil prices is so low, that's the time to do it. So if you thought you were going to save a nickel, don't think that. They're coming for that nickel. I don't know what to say about that one, Scott.
You know what? They have had these free energy things out there for so long, even since Nikola Tesla, and they have suppressed that technology, and they have had people, inventors, whacked for having that technology. And one of these days, this whole planet is going to have to wean themselves off of oil. And I don't like this entire fracking thing. You know, if they would have allowed us to drill the old-fashioned way instead of letting another unnecessary government agency like the EPA, which doesn't protect the environment, they just protect these green commies' agenda, there wouldn't be any reason to even buy oil from Saudi Arabia or any of these Middle Eastern countries. We have enough to sustain our own country for the next 200 years at least.
Yeah, well, Obama, you know, one of the first things he did was right after that oil spill, he shut down all offshore drilling. I'm not so sure that wasn't the way to get it done. He took over so much public property as well as canceled long-standing, like, people who have had these permits on public land for generations. He just abruptly canceled the permits, hasn't redone any of them, hasn't renewed any of them.
Oh.
And now he's taking credit for this cheap gas prices. Like, people don't understand what's going on. This is an attack on our economy. This is an attack on our own energy independence. We could be very independent. We don't, get out of OPEC. Don't worry about what the Saudis are selling their oil for.
Right.
Not to mention, let them eat their sand. Not
to mention the Chinese are drilling off of our own coast and taking our oil, all legally.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. We also have another problem: Operation Choke Point. We told everybody they were coming after the guns. Absolutely, they're coming after the guns, and they're doing it through the banks. Gun dealers can't even get a bank account now. It's like the pot dealers. They can't get a bank account. They have to deal in cash. They can't, the credit cards aren't helping them out. And this is all run by the Department of Justice, Operation Choke Point. A good friend of ours, Kimberly Morin, she wrote this. You may have heard a little bit about Operation Choke Point in the news, although mainstream media tends to ignore outrageous overreaches of government. It's a program that seeks to shut down businesses that the government doesn't like, based on political and personal bias. They tend to be hitting gun store owners and others who are in the firearms business. What does Operation Choke Point do exactly? Regulators will go into a bank to review their customers. If there are customers the regulator doesn't tend to agree with, say the regulator is an anti-Second Amendment amophobe, they will tell the bank that specific account is going to draw a lot more scrutiny than their regular accounts. So that's a threat and intimidation. This causes banks to simply drop the accounts because they don't want the regulators breathing down their necks even more than they already do. What does this cause? Causes gun shop owners like Mike Stutz to sometimes temporarily close down while they find a bank that will do business with them. And this is now from the Daily Signal. Of the decision to close his account, a Heritage Credit Union bank teller told Schwetz, "We have to answer to the examiners, whoever they are." Schwetz wasn't satisfied with that response and asked to speak with a manager about why the bank was closing an account for a legal and legitimate business. A regional manager explained to Schutz that federal examiners came into Heritage Credit Union to perform an exam on everything. Schutz recorded a series of conversations and phone calls between himself and employees at the Heritage Credit Union. The U.S. Consumer Coalition posted the audio of the recordings. And from the Heritage Credit Union, the manager told Schutz, "Examiners from the NCUA, that's the National Credit Union Administration, came in and looked at our accounts, looked at our books. Here's some accounts that we feel are going to regulate you on, and kind of put the screws to us as far as what we could do and couldn't do. The regulatory and compliance issues that we said earlier are true. We never used to have to do that stuff." Essentially, the Second Amendment extremists, who realize they'll never ban firearms, which is the true goal, are trying to stop legal businesses and law-abiding citizens from practicing their Second Amendment rights by trying to close gun shops down. They figure eventually some businesses will close altogether because all banks are regulated, and they can continue to threaten banks who do business with anyone in the firearms business. Last time I checked, we lived in a republic. Who allowed fastest to gain control? Can you believe that?
There's a will, there's a way. And, they know no Americans are not going to give them up.
No.
So they've got to try to stop future sales. They have to try to brainwash the public into thinking about them different. They got to try every method they can do. And none of it's working so far. So.
Yeah, well, we're not fighting as hard as we could be. So for the people who don't want to fight, I wish you luck. For the people who do want to fight, you probably should be stockpiling on some ammo because you won't be able to get ammo anytime soon. If you're going to buy guns, you should probably buy guns similar to the ones that the cops and the government are using because eventually you might be able to get some bullets.
Most people are, and, I tell you, any time now, that 3D printing could change everything because you can print cars, you can print guns, you can print everything. You can print all the crap people go to Walmart to save 10 cents on for Chinese labor to do. There's going to come a time when you're going to be able to print just about anything you want. Might not be today
they're printing,
or tomorrow.
They're printing organs and prosthetics even.
Oh, I know it. The thing is revolutionizing in the entire industrial world.
Yeah. And you could print them in the privacy of your own home. All right, we got a couple more minutes. Let's talk about Lois Lerner for a minute. The Daily Caller come out with an article, the Judicial Watch, who we love, found some more information. Lerner tried to block her own supervisors from visiting. Daily Caller says former IRS official Lois Lerner tried to block an IRS supervisor's visit to the Cincinnati office that she oversaw during the period in which her division was targeting conservative groups. Lerner made clear that she didn't want the official talking to employees involved in early congressional and Inspector General probes into the C4 business, according to newly unearthed emails. As the Daily Caller extensively reported, Lerner and her underling, Nicole Flax, unveiled a new program of nonprofit scrutiny at the 2010 Conference of Government Workers at Washington's Grand Hyatt Hotel. IRS officials obtained donor lists for a secret research project that was approved by then IRS Commissioner Steve T. Miller. Lerner provided confidential taxpayer information on a conservative group to senior White House advisor Jean Lambrew. Lerner wanted to stop people from poking around, according to an April 4, 2012 email uncovered by Judicial Watch, which is suing the IRS for information. We just got a very extensive information request from Imran Kashu, who's an IRS official. Sure looks like op review material. I'm especially concerned that information about Pipeline is being asked about. Add to the fact that the Cincinnati is smack dab in the middle of the C4 congressional inquiries and is about to get a request from TIGTA on all of it. This is not a good time to be asking them for anything or to be talking to them about issues in their work. Everyone's stressed to the max and at their wits' end. So can we put this off, please? Lerner wrote. So she didn't even want the boss looking and snooping around, just in case.
Come on, they don't worry about anything. They're untouchable. She's Fed Reserve, man. They're above the President of the United States. Nothing's going to happen to any of them.
She's sneaking around and passing confidential information to the White House, and the boss is watching. Yeah, nothing's going to happen, but still, she was a little concerned that one of the employees might slip up and tell the truth.
You know what I think it is? I think it's that they can't believe they're untouchable. So they cover their bases, and they cover their backsides just in case. But then they see that they can go up there and they can just lie through their fangs to Congress. Nothing happens. They can just break the law, where you or I would do something. Boy, we'd never see the light of day again. But they can just do whatever they want, and they get away with it. And I don't think they can believe it's this easy.
Yeah. Well, they do.
So, might as well cover your, try to cover your tracks a little bit. You don't want to make it too obvious.
I know.
But
really,
you know what? I still haven't. Remember when they said all the emails disappeared? Well, then, a couple of weeks ago, they said, hey, they found all the emails. Okay, where are they? Have you seen any of them? Has Trey Gowdy drug anybody in front of the committee again to talk about them? No.
No, but I bet it's coming. I think the Republicans are on the move right now. I think they green-lighted everything. I got one more slap for us, and then we got to end the show for today. And it's concerning the IRS. Elderly and disabled taxpayers are now not allowed to leave messages on their telephone. They don't even want to hear from you. American tax reform. In its annual report to Congress today, the Office of the National Taxpayer Advocate outlined a series of Internal Revenue Service failures. In the Access to the IRS section, the report details the trouble taxpayers face reaching the right person in order to meet their tax obligations. This is a quote now. The IRS does not answer the phone at local offices and has even removed the option it once provided for taxpayers, including the elderly and disabled, to leave a message. Until 2013, taxpayers, including the elderly and disabled, were allowed to leave a voicemail requesting an in-person appointment. But now, elderly and disabled taxpayers attempting to navigate the automated helpline maze are asked to email the IRS to set up an appointment. The automated message instructs as follows. If you are disabled or elderly and require special accommodations for service, please email us at, and it gives the email address. But this does leave many taxpayers in the dark. If you're handicapped and disabled, could you even operate an email? Do they even know what your disability is? And you're getting net neutrality whether you want to or not, by the way. The FCC has decided they don't need any more public input, and they gave Congress plenty of time to come up with net neutrality legislation. So now they're going to use an obscure Title II law to go around Congress. Wheeler, who's the director over there, is going to have a vote on I believe February 18th also, among his regulatory people on whether or not to implement net neutrality. I don't know when the regulatory people, started making legislation or who elected them, but they said, they gave us enough time, so now they're going to go around Congress and they're going to do it anyhow. This is a takeover of the Internet, ladies and gentlemen. And on that note, I'm all done for the day. I have no more news for you that I could fit in. You got any closing comments, Scott?
No, just, keep on keeping on. Never give up hope, people.
Really? All right, well, say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Scott. All right, guys. That's all the time we have for today, and thank you for tuning in. To everybody who's listening, thank you. Callers, colleagues, thank you so much. As always, a special thank you to my great co-host, Scott Ferrarello. Stay tuned to Freedomizer Radio all week to keep up with the latest news and info you can actually use. They have a variety of subjects on this network, by the way. And we'll be back next week at the same time, 3 p.m. in the afternoon on Eastern Time, noon Pacific. On that note, Zone 13 out.